Thanks for coming back to the channel, clicking on this video. And as you guys can tell by the title of this video, this is pretty much just going to be in-depth review of my 2017 C63 that I've got. So if you guys are new to the channel, just a quick update. I did get this car about 3-4 months ago now. I don't know how that's already happened. Time just flies by, I guess. But yeah, so this is my 2017 C63 coupe that I've had now for a couple months. And it's a pre-facelift model. So this has, let me see how many miles if I can show you guys. About 49K miles, right? So not too bad. It's been well taken care of, mint condition car, service, maintenance, things like that. And these over these past few months, I've noticed a couple things about this car that I liked and I also did not like. So if you guys are in the market of a C63 or you just like C63s and you want to know just the overall experience and what it takes to own one, hopefully this video will answer that question for you guys and give you guys a proper image of this car. So with that being said, if you guys are new here, hit the like button and also subscribe, and I'm gonna start on with the video. So the first thing I noticed when it comes to driving this car is the suspension. Now everyone always used to tell me like AMGs are really, you know, stiff, and you know, I have a C43 and that car was pretty stiff, I'm not gonna lie. Even though it was all-wheel drive and it was nice little car to daily every now and then, it was definitely stiff. But this thing is like a whole different level. Like you're literally gonna feel every single bump, every little sewage hole, little pothole, anything. You're gonna feel it like 10 times more. Now, is it practical? No, it's really annoying, you know, to get used to at first. But I mean, as you start, you know, driving this car more often and just like seeing what the overall experience is, you're gonna get used to it. So yeah, if you're coming out of a, you know, like a regular car or just a car that's obviously not as stiff, it's definitely gonna, you know, catch you by surprise, because again, not something that, you know, an everyday car has. But again, the level of stiffness on this car is obviously meant for the track, and just track oriented reasons. So that way, like, it corners better and just performs better on the track. But I mean, obviously not everyone is on the track 24/7, so you guys can pick and choose and decide for yourselves if that's going to make an issue for you if you decide to own one of these cars. The second thing about this car I noticed, which was so nice and unique to this car, has to be the exhaust. The AMG growl in the V8s, especially in this one, the M177, is like no other. Like, you cannot replicate this. It's specific to this car, and it literally just screams AMG. Like, it's a big, aggressive, deep rumble to it. Every now and then you have a little burbles and crackles. It just sounds so nice. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you guys unless you obviously know what I'm talking about. If you've been around AMGs or just have been in an AMG yourself, like, you just know what I'm talking about. This thing sounds so nice. Even in comfort, honestly, if you're just cruising around, like, you hear like a little bit of like a deep tone in the back, and it's kind of settling. Like, it'll remind you, like, yo, like, I'm here. If you need power, I have it. So it's just a really nice thing to hear. And obviously, who doesn't like V8s? I'm yet to come across anyone that doesn't like V8s, especially an AMG V8. This thing sounds amazing. Speaking of AMG V8s, this thing makes some pretty big power. So since this is not the S model, this one makes, I believe, rated 470 horsepower at the crank and 480 pound-feet of torque. And it's definitely there. And to be honest, I feel like sometimes it really does make more, because this thing is so tail happy, especially on the lower RPMs or even mid-range. At times you'll find this car like spinning everywhere in the traction light, just having a seizure on the dash. Like, it's a whole lot of chaos, but it's tons of fun. Now, one thing I will say is make sure you have obviously good tread on your tire. You know, you don't want to end up crashing or losing control, God forbid, in this car, because it can definitely happen. Now, it's not to say that's happened to me. You know, I've gotten used to driving this car. I know the peak, or not the peak spots, the sweet spots of this car and things like that. But definitely I would recommend to be on a tire that has a good amount of tread. Even if you don't do anything to this car and leave it stock, I promise you guys, especially on the low end, it's very torquey. Now, the reason for that being is not just the power, but the way the turbos are placed on this car. So when you open up the hood, you have 2 turbos sitting right at the top of the hood. And with that being said, since that is there, it just delays, you know, the turbo lag, and it's kind of like almost instant. Like, there really is no turbo lag in this car, at least from what I've noticed. It's definitely there. The moment you put your foot down to the gas pedal, you hear just a lot of pops and bangs and just aggressiveness. Just the car turns into a whole different monster. And then, depending on how much tread you have left, you either hook or you don't. That's pretty simple. That's kind of how it is. But yeah, the sound of this car and the power is amazing, and it's definitely something that you're gonna also notice right away. Now, tuning these cars might cost a little bit more, But I will say this, from what I have seen, the M177 is a very, very reliable platform if you take care of it. Now, what do I mean by that? Proper oil changes every now and then. Now, I don't recommend doing it once every 10K miles like Mercedes rates. Personally, I do the oil change like once every 6K miles. 10K is kind of a stretch. You know, make sure your engine fluids are there, changing your spark plugs, you know, regularly. Just things like that. If you take care of the car, you know, you shouldn't really have that many issues. These things are really reliable and can definitely take a beating. It's a really strong engine, but again, make sure you're up to date on its services and you shouldn't really have too much of an issue. And another thing you're gonna like and just notice about this car is the transmission. So this car has the 7-speed, I believe it's a dual clutch. Some people say it's a multi-clutch, but I'm pretty sure this is the dual clutch. The 7-speed dual clutch transmission in this car. So I have a C43 which has the 9-speed. It's the facelift, it's the 2020, drives perfectly fine. I love that car. But this is just really violent. Like the 7-speed in this car is a really aggressive shifting car, and it's very fast, but it's not as smooth, if that makes sense. Like, it's a very fast shifting transmission, but it's not as smooth as a 9-speed. Now, I know the 9-speed is pretty much based off the 7-speed. They just added 2 more gears for like fuel efficiency and things like that, but as an overall transmission, the 7-speed, you're really gonna feel like how aggressive this transmission is. And with that being said, this transmission does try to be like eco-friendly, I guess, and save as much gas as possible, which doesn't really help. I mean, it tries to. You know, when you drive the car in comfort, it turns on, it's in 2nd gear, so like, you know, it's supposed to work less, but I mean, I don't know. It's really not that practical, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, but it definitely is tons of fun. Like, you can feel the gears as the car goes through the gears. And from what I've heard, actually, when you start modifying these cars, the 7-speed actually holds a lot of power. So like, it can stay on a stock transmission tune, with, you know, tuning the ECU and adding things like that to it for quite a good amount of horsepower, to be honest with you guys. So yeah, the 7-speed transmission has its goods, has its bads, but overall it's a really solid transmission. Now, with all that being said, as an overall car, with everything that this car has to offer and everything, how practical is it? I mean, it can be practical, but it also can't be practical because it relies on 2 factors. The weather, well, actually 1 factor, really being the weather, honestly. Because since it is a rear-wheel drive car, driving it in the rain and snow is really not going to be the best idea. But I mean, it just depends on like how much rain is out on the ground and how much snow there is and things like that. So I mean, again, driving this thing, tons of fun. Is it practical? Maybe on a scale of, you know, 1 to 10, 10 being the most practical, I'll probably give it like a 6.5, 7. You really can't fit that many people back here. The seats are, you know, pretty much useless unless you have like someone below 5'5". There's a good amount of trunk space in the back, but again, as an overall car, it's not meant to be a daily. Again, that does depend on where you live and like the weather factor and things like that. But I mean, it's definitely a fun car to have, especially if you have like a second car, you want it to be like a nice little weekend car, whenever the weather's nice and things like that. It's definitely a car that I would recommend. So with that being said, I hope that gives you guys a quick little understanding of this car and what it has to offer. Yeah, so C63 pre-facelift model, overall definitely worth it, and probably one of the best AMGs in my opinion ever made. It's just so well rounded, so well balanced. It has performance, it has luxury, it can be very comfortable. Practicality, nah, but I mean, at the end of the day, when you're in this thing, does it really matter? Like, do you really buy one of these things just to be practical? Not really. I mean, I didn't buy it to be practical at all. So with that being said, hopefully that helps you guys get a better understanding of this car. If you guys are new to the video, hit the like button and also subscribe, and then I'll see you guys in the next one.